Hey guys, in this week's episode, we're going to review 1917, but before that, we're going to be talking Oscar nomination and our most anticipated films for 2020. Join us!
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is a man who decided that we would record this all in one take. Mike, how are you doing today, sir?
Do we usually do more than one take? Have I been cutting out early each recording session?
Yeah, we re-record the parts that you mess up later.
Oh, no wonder
I do a spot on,
are better when I don't edit.
I do a spot on Mike impression.
You really are the actor of the group.
Also with us is a man who decided that we would do few well-placed edits in our podcast. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I am editing this episode, so you're not wrong. So I am good, though. Thank you for asking.
No problem.
All right, wonderful. If this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk everything going on in the world of film and TV, as well as everything we've been watching since the last episode. And then we'll be reviewing 1917. So if you haven't seen the movie, you can keep listening. It's all time-stamped in the show. Feel free to hop in and out whenever you feel like it. But guys, before we continue, in honor of 1917, I had a question for you.
Okay.
What is the most intense run of your entire life? Where were you going, or what were you running from? And did you make it in time?
All right, I can go right away on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
So I ran half a marathon once, and I did it for because this girl was going to run the other half of the marathon. So she ran the first half of it, and I had to run the second half. So there's like no not running it. Like if I didn't finish it, this is a girl I had a crush on, so I had to finish it.
You're a big old wimp.
Yeah. So and she had already done her half of it, so I had to run the second half of it, and I didn't exactly know how long a marathon was. Like in my head, it was like 23 miles, but it's actually 26.2. And so like I would cross these mile markers and I was like, man, I am making great time. I was not making great time, but I did well. I did all right. When you run that far, I mean, I haven't ever done a whole marathon. I have friends that have, but when you run that far, like funny things start to happen. I was starving, and like we had to run through like Deep Ellum in Dallas, and there's like hamburger joints and stuff, and I was just like smelling that smell, and I was just like, just a little bit further. I felt like Wimpy from the Popeye cartoons, you know, that the smell comes and like drags him off to the burger. Anyways, that was the longest I've run and the hardest and the most intense.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm impressed. All right. Justin, did that give you adequate time?
I'm trying to remember the hardest run that I've ever had, but I can remember the one that's like really recent, but I think maybe the more interesting story is not quite a run, but it's intense. So which one would you rather hear?
The intense one, of course.
Good answer. So when I was growing up, I lived with my grandparents, and we lived with a creek in our backyard, and it would flood regularly. And one morning I got woken up at like 5:30 in the morning, and it had just been raining all night, and the creek was flooding as it did, but it was really bad, and it was like getting up to the house. So I had to we basically had to pull the cars like out of the driveway into the street where the water like wouldn't come to, and then like hang out in the cars. But I had to like help my grandma out through like the flood water and get her into the car, and then like run back inside and get the dog and bring it to the car, and then run back inside. And like I had some like things like my guitar and stuff that I didn't want to get damaged in the flood because I couldn't afford another one, and I was playing in a band at the time. So I had I got like my guitar case and like held it over my head, and like had like ran and like jumped off the porch into the water and like waded over to the car.
Man.
So it wasn't like a dead sprint, right? But I was running back and forth as fast as I can through like floodwater.
Yeah, and time is of the essence, so it makes sense.
Yeah, very intense.
Yeah, totally counts in honor of 1917.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so what's yours, Mike?
Well, mine felt that intense, and maybe it was. I don't know. I was a little kid, and I was at my grandma's house, and she used to have this, like, I guess, like, this wild turkey that used to live in her, like, cul-de-sac, and it had eggs by her door. And it was, like, really, like, territorial. It didn't want, like, anyone approaching its nest, right? But, like, it was right next to the front door, and, like, all the adults were just like, whatever, turkey, get out of here. But, like, I was a little kid. So, like, I found myself in the front yard with in the turkey in between me and the door. And I tried to, like, inch by it because it didn't look very aggressive. But then, it started chasing me. So, like, I guess the most intense I've ever run in my life. Probably not the longest or the fastest, but, just the most intense situation that I remember was running for my life from this crazy turkey because it thought I wanted to take its eggs. So, anyway, that's my memory of that.
Well, I can't blame the turkey.
Yeah, well, you know what? It wasn't invited to make its nest there, but I guess all the adults thought it was, like, really cute, and they weren't scared of it. Or at least it was scareder of them than it was of me.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure all the adults thought you running from a turkey was cute at the time, too.
Yeah, probably so. It was. I guess it probably didn't last that long because they saved me. But it felt like a really long time.
Well, good to know. I don't think any of these stories would make as good of a movie as 1917. If I'm honest.
Probably not.
Mine sounds exciting, but it's just like me with a guitar.
I don't know. I've been working on a script called Chris Runs a Half Marathon. I think it's pretty original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So when we're not running from things, one of the things we like to do here on the Casual Cinecast is every other week we do a Criterion-themed episode. And how we do that is that each of us picks a movie from the Criterion collection, and then we put it out to the interwebs for the Twitters and the Facebooks, all to vote on it. And then whatever movie gets voted on the most, which is how voting works, we pick that one and then we talk about it on the collection. We just recently did 12 Angry Men, and it looks like we have... Do we have a winner yet? I'm not sure.
We're close. I think the poll has something like 20 hours left in it, but by the time this episode comes out, it will be done. But there's a clear front runner.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, announce the winner, if you will, please.
Okay.
Or the soon-to-be winner.
Yeah. So right now, currently, we are at In the Mood for Love, sitting at 42.4% comfortably, which is Chris's pick. Then Thief, the Michael Mann film, starring James Caan, chosen by Justin, sitting at 30.3%. And then my film, David Lean's Brief Encounter, sitting at 27.3%. So only 20 hours left for Brief Encounter to go ahead and pull ahead.
To make an amazing comeback.
That's it.
Yep.
Well, if you want to vote in the Criterion polls that we put out every other week, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. If you want to send us questions or topics to discuss about the movies we're reviewing each week, you can send those to any of those social media accounts. You can also send those to casualcinemedia at gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already and you like the show, you want to help other people find the show, go ahead and give us a 5-star review on iTunes, and also subscribe wherever you're listening to. And if you haven't done it, subscribe.
Yeah. Subscribe your friends.
It's the polite thing to do.
Okay, guys, we have a jam-packed episode today. We have a lot to talk about. So what do you say we go ahead and move into News on the March?
Let's go.
I'm already there.
Oh, man.
Oh,
All right.
wow.
Better run after you. On theme,
News on the March!
All right, now that we've caught up with Chris in News on the March, let's go ahead and talk about what everyone is talking about today. Just broke this morning, so perfect time to record this. Totally planned.
Mm-hmm.
That is the Oscar nominations for 2020 have hit. And Lots of surprises, lots of upset today on film Twitter, but what else is new? But I guess the most interesting thing is, of course, the Best Picture. They, recently tried to add in the most popular film category, and then everyone freaked out about that.
Boy, did they.
Yeah, and here we are. So this is interesting because I think this is this is what we see, is them trying to kind of combine popular and artsy films, kind of. So anyway, the nominees are, let's see here. We got Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Marriage Story, Parasite, and 1917.
9 films. They couldn't think of a 10th one that was also good.
Yeah, I wonder what the 10th film would have been.
I've got some suggestions. One in particular.
Okay, well, let's hear that in a second. But of the films that are nominated, what are we thinking here? Any surprises?
Surprises? No.
I think Parasite being nominated is somewhat of a surprise.
That's a consolation nomination.
Yeah, I mean, it's nominated. It's going the Roma route, right? Where Roma was nominated for both the Best Picture and Best Foreign Film. So probably going to go that same route where it wins Best Foreign Film but doesn't win this. But
yeah. I think these are all actually pretty obvious. The exception, the one film that I haven't seen yet, is Ford versus Ferrari, but that doesn't feel like a movie that wouldn't get nominated for Best Picture, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. I think the one that surprises me the most is Jojo Rabbit. But I haven't seen Jojo Rabbit. I know you guys have, but just the word of mouth at the time made me surprised that there was kind of a second wave of affection for it,
Well, I think it feels like one of those sort of, Best Picture nominees that you, like a World War II, the Nazis, that sort of thing, right? Like those films tend to get nominated or
sure.
tend to be important, like historically speaking. So this is kind of the only option at that.
Yeah, I guess because I avoided the marketing for Jojo Rabbit, I wasn't quite sure of the tone. So I guess it's more of a serious movie than I was expecting. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, without saying much, it's not just like a silly, goofy romp.
I didn't think it would be that, but I just thought it would be a little bit more too goofy for this kind of prestige. But hey, I'm happy to be wrong. Makes me more excited to watch it.
Yeah, it has heart, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think
I definitely believe that. Hunt for the Wilder People had heart. And if you like Jojo Rabbit, I think you should check out Hunt for the Wilder People, because I know that you have a mixed relationship with Taika Waititi.
True, and I did like Jojo Rabbit, so that is definitely on my list to see soon.
Yeah. So I think the other one that I'm not going to say it's an upset, but it doesn't belong on this list, and something else probably should take its place, like, I don't know, anything that we'll probably talk about here in a minute, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Granted, I would like Quentin Tarantino to win an Oscar, but I would have liked him to have won back in, 2009 for Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Because what won in 2009? Was it The Hurt Locker?
Yeah, it was The Hurt Locker, which is a great movie.
It is. But Inglourious Bastards, I think, has stood in pop culture a little stronger than that one. So I think in retrospect, whatever.
Yeah, that's the one, barring Ford versus Ferrari, which I've yet to see. But, if you exclude that one, I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is the one that I would maybe replace. And I guess I was expecting I would get like a little, pushback. So I was surprised to hear you pick that one.
Well, I mean, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, if you were like, it's a bad movie and belongs nowhere, nominated for anything and no recognition, I would be like, well, hang on. I'll push back against that. I think it's a solid movie. But, I mean, my God, it's up against Parasite, Marriage Story, The Irishman, Little Women.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a better movie than Joker, if you're asking me personally. But I also am not one of these people who are upset that Joker got, 11 nominations, right? I think Joker is just okay. But equally, I completely understand that it's probably good that the general public is actually excited about a Best Picture nominee for once.
On the other side of that is it's good that the Academy Award voters are respectful of a comic book movie, you know? I mean, it's
Yeah,
not going to
I just-
win, and I guess Dark Knight did not get nominated for Best Picture, and that's what started the whole let's extend the Best Picture category, right?
Yeah.
So we've had other comic book movies nominated, but it seems like with Joker getting the most nominations, that's like a sign that, like, hey, if you pump out, a comic book movie that stands out and feels a little different, then we'll respect it or we'll give you nominations for it, right?
Yeah, well, at this point, I mean, comic book movies are almost a genre of them in and of itself, right? It's almost like not acknowledging westerns or, something of that nature, right? Like, there's just too many of them now. It's not a little niche anymore. It's not like, oh, Tim Burton's doing a Batman adaptation in the 80s. It's not that anymore. Right. It's got so much money behind it that like it or not, you have to grapple with it eventually. So I understand the urge to reward Joker, even though like the movie itself, I think it's good. It's not a bad movie by any stretch of the word. I don't think. I think all this backlash is pretty crazy. But then again, here's what I would say to all these people upset about Joker in Best Picture. I would say I haven't seen the best movie get Best Picture since maybe 2007.
Yeah.
And I doubt it's happened too often before that either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that one's also debatable, but it was one of the best movies for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you got to think about too, though, is it's all about taste and preference, and stuff like that. So kind of what I go for in these, like, I want to see a good smattering of films I really liked, and I actually think that this represents some of the best movies of the year. There is, like Mike, you're saying Joker. I think we were about on the same page with Joker not being the greatest movie of all time. I'm not upset that it's on here. I like that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's on here, Marriage Story, Parasite, The Irishman. I haven't seen Ford versus Ferrari, but I'm going to. It just felt standard. That was probably the one, like, even more so than, and I can't really speak to it because I haven't seen it, but just from my feeling about the film, it felt the most standard of a film, right?
Well, I agree. So what I would say is it makes sense from a business standpoint, right? And what I think is, like, if you want the Oscars to remain relevant, I guess what I'm saying is I've stopped caring what actually wins Best Picture, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've been disappointed so many times that I just simply don't care. It's more of like the fun of like what's going to get nominated and the whole conversation around trying to see all the movies like before the Oscars. Like, that's where I get the enjoyment. Like, the Best Picture never actually wins, in my opinion. Last year we got Green Book. So, you know what? Like, we got Crash once, like we got The Artist in 2011. Like, say what you will about Joker, it will be more remembered in 5 years than The Artist was 5 years later.
Right.
So, this isn't the Independent Spirit Awards. We're not supposed to reward movies just for like how indie and artsy they were. We're supposed to reward them for like what's popular, I guess, in a sense. Not necessarily. That doesn't necessarily always equal best, but the Academy Awards didn't start out as like the let's draw attention to the artsy movies awards, They started out rewarding the biggest movies of the year. It just got away from that. So this is just a kind of a return to form. It's just all the movie nerds don't like it. And
I mean,
and I understand that.
Yeah. I mean, the category is Best Picture, so it should be, as opposed to, it should be rewarding the best pictures of the year. And
I mean, I agree. Ultimately, I agree. I'm just trying to be diplomatic about this whole thing,
Well, right.
Well, I mean, I think Chris's point stands in that it's a pretty good representation of like the best films of the year. Sure, there's a couple that could be on here and, in place of some other ones. Sure. And that gets a little subjective, but I think
you don't make $1 billion without making a lot of fans, though. So a lot of people clearly thought this was a really, really good movie. And it's better than, like, I don't know, like Captain Marvel or Man of Steel or whatever, right? Or Black Panther, right? So like Joker's got more to say than those movies do, I guess. So
yeah. And I just look at the whole thing and just see it as kind of you know, we don't have any like Bohemian Rhapsodies on here.
Yeah, there's not a Green
that's
Book.
true.
Or like Green Books, in my opinion.
Yeah,
or
that's what I was saying.
Crashes.
Basically, is like, yeah, freak out all you want to about Joker. Even if it wins, like last year, Green Book won. So like anything on this list could win, and we're already better off than we were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's good about it, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Besides Best Picture, what stood out for everyone here?
I did want to, and this is part of Best Picture, but kind of my biggest disappointment of the ballots, and I guess that's the only thing. Anyways, my biggest disappointment is that The Farewell's not on here in any capacity, and that's really disappointing to me because I really, really love that film and would have liked to seen it at least represented in some way. It doesn't have to necessarily be Best Picture, although I think it's worthy of that. But in some way, like Best Script, Best Adapted Screenplay, or even Lead Actress, I think would have been good. And I don't know. I'm just kind of disappointed that that's not on there.
Yeah, it came out too early in the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Us, too, I think is the other one.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on The Farewell. Like, there's a couple that I would replace it, but that's pretty subjective. And there's no films that I would take out because I don't like them. So,
Yeah.
But The Farewell would have been cool. It could have been the 10th film.
Yeah, for
What the
sure.
heck? There's only 9.
Or quit putting a limit on that and just throw it in the foreign language, you know? This arbitrary limit of 5 needs to go.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, too. I remember there being I don't remember the details, but like a kerfuffle over like how much they talked in Mandarin or a different language, and whether or not it could be Best Picture or if it needed to be submitted into Best Foreign Film. Which
I think if it was going to
weird.
be anything other than Best Foreign Language, it would need to be coming out within the last 2 months. Because only the foreign language movies that get released earlier in the year ever get remembered for that long, you know?
Yeah, agreed. But I just don't know what makes a foreign language film.
Yeah, that's true. It may not even qualify technically,
Yeah.
and it probably doesn't deserve it. I agree that it should be in Best Picture. Like I said, realistically, I just think The Farewell was never going to be.
Yeah, and I was kind of hoping for like I said, at least a screenplay award or
or Aquafina
acting, yeah.
nomination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that could segue us into just the acting ones, because those are some of the other big ones.
Yeah.
The big snubs, I think, are in the male category, which would be Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems and Robert De Niro in The Irishman.
Yeah, those two hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but like I don't like those.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood or The Two Popes yet. I know, Mike, you've seen Two Popes, and Chris, you've seen Beautiful Day. Yeah, and I like Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too, but I would put Adam Sandler in over him.
Yeah, but he's in
I'm
Best
sorry,
Supporting
that's
Actor.
supporting. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong category here.
Yeah, but I agree though. I mean, Brad Pitt's basically just being Brad Pitt and being what we all imagine Brad Pitt to be, which is just a cool guy, the coolest guy in any room that he's in.
Yeah,
Brad Pitt's gonna win. That's my take.
He's going to ride his charisma all the way to an Oscar. That's all he had to do this whole time.
Yeah,
Just
and he
quit trying to
hasn't
play
gotten one
characters and
yet.
quit trying to
Yeah.
act.
Yeah.
yeah. It's difficult. I would pull Leo out of there then, probably, and maybe the Two Popes one, I guess, for Adam Sandler, because I did see Pain and Glory recently, and Antonio Banderas is really good in it.
I'll be seeing that in a couple of days.
Nice, but yeah, I would have liked to see Adam Sandler in there. It would have been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I agree. That would have made the award season so much more fun, so much more lively. Yeah, you know, it would just been like a happy narrative, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who knows when the next time Adam Sandler is going to get offered something like this, and then he's going to actually want to have the energy to do it.
Right. Yeah, and Robert De Niro is up there, you know?
Yeah, and I guess the sad part there is, like, he's been trying to get The Irishman made for a really long time. This was kind of like his passion project.
Yeah. And then the other two walk away with supporting actor nominations and not him.
Yeah.
I'm sure it
Which
was
is a
close.
bummer. Yeah, the thing is, like, if he had been supporting, he probably would have been in that nomination as well, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I think what this all really says is just how strong the main actor category is. Except
sure.
for, in my opinion, I think Jonathan Pryce, get him out of there.
Well, there's actually one more kind of disappointment that I had, not to be completely negative, and I think that's director. I think Greta Gerwig, I would have liked to have seen her get nominated for Best Director. Little Women's nominated, and I that's as one of my favorite films of the year. I think Greta Gerwig did a really great job with that film and the way she adapted it and stuff. And so it does have, I think it's Best Adapted Screenplay, obviously, but yeah, I would like to see her get some recognition as well.
And she got, some actor nominations out of it too, which, working with the actor is an important thing the director's doing too. So, there's some credit that she deserves for, guiding those actresses in those roles too, So I'm with you. I think that's probably my biggest disappointment over any like actor snubs or acting snubs or even Best Picture snubs. I think Greta Gerwig should have been in here.
I think my biggest disappointment is still Adam Sandler. I'm not even the biggest Adam Sandler fan. In fact, I'm not an Adam Sandler fan. But
except for when he does movies like this.
Yeah, except for Punch Drunk Love and this and
Merowitz Stories.
Yeah.
And Happy Gilmore.
But yeah.
Called you out on it.
Yeah, I'm genuinely bummed about that.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I have a question for you guys. Does anything on here make you want to go back and give a second look at something that you overlooked before or didn't think was going to be relevant or important or anything like that?
I still haven't seen Bombshell, and Charlize Theron is nominated for that. And, of course, I haven't seen Pain and Glory yet, which is one that I really want to see as well. So that's not necessarily revisiting, but stuff that I still need to check out. That's
what I mean by revisit. Like take a second look at, like, whether it be, like, not necessarily watch it again, but, like, revisit in the sense that, like, oh, I didn't think this was important, but now I do.
Yeah, maybe Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah, that's one for me, for sure. Jojo Rabbit's one for me.
Yeah, I think some animated feature films, I've heard a lot of good things about Missing Link and Klaus, but I would have probably not watched them, but now I kind of feel like I should. Okay. Another one would be The Irishman is nominated for cinematography, and that kind of puzzles me because I thought it looked like it's just a perfectly normal film and nothing exceptional. Not to say that it doesn't look good, it's just kind of regular. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Compared to these other nominees. And I guess I want to go back and pay more attention to the cinematography.
Yeah, that's fair.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't really have that many other thoughts about any of this stuff. What about you guys?
I'm actually really excited that I Lost My Body got nominated. I just recently watched that. It's on Netflix right now.
Yeah, I just watched that too.
Yeah, what'd you think?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's fine.
I don't know that it's fine. I think it's better than fine.
I think it's better than fine too. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really have like an emotional response to it. I think it's beautifully animated.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
But and definitely worth your time. And it's on Netflix, so definitely watch it because it's certainly better than most movies on Netflix, I'm sure. But I didn't have any kind of like, ooh, at the end,
Yeah.
And actually, one more big surprise. This is the biggest surprise to me. Ever since I saw this movie earlier this year, I thought it was a lock to be nominated for Best Documentary. And I love this film. And that's Apollo 11 was not nominated for Best Documentary.
Yeah. But my favorite documentary of the year that I watched within the last week, because I watched like 3 documentaries in the last 7 days, my favorite one of those was nominated, and that's Honeyland.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out. What is that on right now?
Honeyland is great.
Is that a Netflix thing?
It's a Hulu thing.
Oh, Hulu.
Okay.
Yeah. So I watched Honeyland, I watched Apollo 11, and I watched American Factory. And I think Honeyland is my favorite, followed by American Factory. Mm-hmm. Then Apollo 11 is pretty great, though. So I'm also pretty surprised it didn't get nominated for something.
And the experience of seeing that in the theater, I think, elevated it quite a bit for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything else?
Nope.
No. A better year than normal, but so many good movies that there are some snubs in here that really hurt.
Yeah, there's a few. Not as many as normal, I think.
But maybe not as many as normal, but like I feel like I just thought Adam Sandler was a shoo-in. You know what I mean? Like that's all I heard about for the past 2 weeks was Adam Sandler, and I just like I feel so let down personally.
Yeah, maybe it came out too late.
Yeah, maybe so.
Well, 1917 came out, or it feels like
But
this year.
but it's been out.
2020.
It's been out in New York and LA for a long time.
Yeah.
But
So they've had time to like.
yeah, but 1917 is like that doesn't that film, you know, regardless of my opinion of it, that film doesn't have to work as hard to
That's
get an
true.
Oscar nomination as
People-
something like Uncut Gems and Adam Sandler would.
They vote for 1917 without having seen it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Well, just and that and like the subject matter lends itself to Academy Awards.
Exactly.
nominations.
Right, exactly.
That's what I mean.
Okay. Cool. So, any other thoughts about Oscar nominations?
Not a one.
Chris, you need to answer that question before we can move on.
Neither do I.
Good.
Cool.
Okay, so real quick, it's the dawn of a new year, guys.
Yes, it is.
You know what that means?
I think so.
What do you think it means?
A lot more movies are going to come out this year to be excited about.
Exactly. That's right.
Surprise.
And that means we need to talk about our most anticipated movies of the year. So we're each going to pick 3 of our most anticipated films coming out sometime before the end of 2020. Unless something gets moved or delayed or something, which might happen.
Yep.
It
It happened
has
to Chris
happened
for like 2
to
years.
us before.
Yeah. Under the Silver Lake, cough.
Yeah.
Also snubbed on the Oscars.
So
JK.
who won? Yeah, yep. Under the Silver Lake. Were you holding out hope for that one?
No, but it'd have been cool.
I don't even think it had a theatrical release, really.
Yeah, I don't know if
that
it qualifies.
remember.
Yeah, probably not. Anyways, sorry.
All right, most anticipated of 2020. Okay, so who wants to get started?
I'll get started. How about I go, then Chris, then Mike?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Sounds good.
That's the opposite of what we have in the notes. I like it.
I know. I just thought it would keep us on our toes. All right. So first up for me is Last Night in Soho, which is going to be the new Edgar Wright film. I liked Baby Driver. I didn't like The World's End, but I love Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, and just a big Edgar Wright fan in general. Like, even though I didn't like The World's End, you know, there's some things that are charming about it and fun that are, you know, Edgar Wright-isms. And I just really like it, just about everything he does. So, you know, I think this will be fun. I'll always go see one of his movies, basically, you know?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
And
me too.
getting a new one's always exciting.
So far, he's one of the few guys still making original ideas, you know?
Yeah, that too. And I don't even know what this movie's about. I just know the name, and that's all I need to know.
Awesome. Cool. What's next?
Oh, we're all going at once? That's
Yeah,
cool.
I thought we were just going to list them real quick.
Yeah, okay, cool. So next on my list is On the Rocks from Sofia Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot known about this one, but she is reuniting with Bill Murray.
Awesome.
Nice, of course.
Yeah, which is a combo that brought us Lost in Translation, which is a fantastic movie. And this one sounds a little bit more in that realm, that sort of like true life, semi-autobiographical sort of thing, where it's like about a woman trying to reconnect with her father. And that sounds like a winning combo to me.
Do we know who is playing opposite of Bill Murray?
So according to IMDb, there's Jessica Henwick, who's from Game of Thrones,
Yeah, okay.
Jenny Slate, and Rashida Jones.
Oh,
So any one of those, I guess, could be the main character. Maybe they all 3 are. I don't really know.
okay.
Jessica
Cool,
Henwick's listed first, so yeah. Cool. And then my last film, the one that I'm most excited about, is Wendy from Ben Zeitlin. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that horribly. But Ben Zeitlin made one of my favorite films from the past decade, which was Beast of the Southern Wild. It came out in 2012. I was a really big fan of that film, and I've been excited to see what he's going to do next. And what he's going to do next is that this project has been around for a while, but it's basically a sort of loose adaptation of Peter Pan. But watching the trailer, which is out now because I think it's premiering at Sundance very soon, it's like got this sort of Lord of the Flies vibe of a bunch of kids at an island, and it just seems like a very real. I don't know. Did anyone see Beast of the Southern Wild?
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yeah, that has some fantastical elements in it, and that seems to be there's like a similar amount of fantastical elements in Wendy based on the trailer as compared to like, you know, what's fantastic about Peter Pan, right?
Right.
It's not like super magical and super fantasy.
Right.
But it looks really interesting. It's a lot of kids again. Beasts of Southern Wild had the Oscar-nominated performance from the kid whose name eludes me right now, but it seems like his specialty. But I watched the trailer. It looks great, and I'm excited about it.
Awesome. I'll avoid the trailer, but I'm sold on the movie already. It sounds really cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are my three. So, Chris.
Yeah, so for my three, my first one is Mank, which is the David Fincher Netflix film which is about one of the co-writers of Citizen Kane. So I'm a big fan of David Fincher. I also like Citizen Kane. This should be a pretty interesting film. I don't know. I mean, once again, I don't know much about it. I know the director and what it's about. You know, like that it's based on the Citizen Kane. Huh?
After this year, David Fincher teaming up with Netflix and a Netflix kind of budget. That's all I really need to know.
Yeah.
And I read that he's been trying to make this since The Game, but studios kept turning him away because
perfect. The perfect thing for Netflix
is going to be in black and white. So once again, you know, it's an auteur going to Netflix and getting to make the film the way he wants to make it. So I hope it goes into the theaters, but I'm thankful that Netflix is allowing these things to get made, for sure.
Yeah. I just hope this bubble doesn't burst too soon, and once they win too many Oscars, they stop hungering for it and stop producing these kinds of movies, you know?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think they need to produce stuff in order to like stay relevant and talked about. Like if they produce the B quality stuff that they have been producing, it doesn't necessarily generate a lot of buzz as opposed to stuff like Mank and Marriage Story and Irishman.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Question for you. As a person who hates really long movie titles, how stoked are you that they chose to go with Bank as the title?
I'm the most stoked.
Good.
It should be called Mank: How I Learned to Stop Hating Citizen Kane and Love It. And then some more stuff on there too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to make it really long.
Just his name would have been really long. Joseph L. Mankiewicz.
Yeah. Mankiewicz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my next one is going to be The French Dispatch from Wes Anderson. It's going to have Timothée Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan. And I think those two together, just that alone, like Timothée Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan together in a movie makes me want to see it. Add Wes Anderson in there, and I'm all about it. Super excited for this. And Kate Winslet's going to be in it, so it's a win-win-win. So I'm super excited about that. And my third and final one is one that's going to be on this list somewhere, whether it's on mine or someone else's, but Tenet. Tenet, however you pronounce it. This is a new Christopher Nolan film. I like Christopher Nolan. I've loved him since Memento, and I haven't loved all his movies, but I'm always interested in seeing what he does next. And after seeing the teaser trailer, it looks really interesting, and I'm super excited for it, really. It'll be really interesting to see how this movie turns out. It's got John David Washington in it and Robert Pattinson, and Robert Pattinson's on a tear. It's kind of Robert Pattinson's return to blockbuster cinema before he turns into Batman. So a lot of stuff to be really excited about in there.
Like Cinderella at midnight.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. So, Mike, what are your type 3 most anticipated movies for the year 2020?
Well, real quick, I just wanted to comment on Tenet. I am also looking forward to that one. Christopher Nolan's one of those guys that, like, at this point, he has earned my curiosity, no matter what it is. I wasn't the biggest fan of Interstellar. Mm-hmm. In fact, the more time goes on, the less I like that movie.
Yeah,
for some reason. I don't know why. But
I'm right there with you.
For some reason, I'd like it less and less as time goes on. But between The Dark Knight, Inception, and Dunkirk,
and Memento.
Not to mention The Prestige, Memento, and the following,
And the one that always gets forgotten is Insomnia, which I haven't revisited.
Insomnia, yeah.
Love to
Like
revisit that,
I'm not the biggest fan of Interstellar or The Dark Knight Rises, and I think Batman Begins is okay, but he has made more than enough exceptional content that he earns everyone's curiosity. I think at this point, without having to do anything, like
For sure.
yeah.
And
so.
I think we were talking about David Fincher getting to do whatever he wants at Netflix, right? Christopher Nolan has certainly earned the budget. Christopher Nolan has a budget of $225 million. So this is a gigantic budget, too. So he's just kind of getting to do whatever he wants as well. Because all his movies usually make a ton of money. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that he's not doing something more in the Dunkirk vein, because ever since Inception, every time he comes out with one of these like wild conceptual movies, I have to avoid the trailers and the teaser trailers for like 8 months leading up to it. So I just have to like find myself like running out of a theater with my hands like over my ears and
Saying, la 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 la
yeah.
la la la.
Once the trailer starts, and I'm not looking forward to another like 6-7 months of that.
Yeah, July is when it comes out.
5 months, 6 months, yeah.
It's really coming out for our birthday, because it's like right after our birthday, Justin.
Ooh, I'm gonna be in sandals at that when that comes out. So maybe hopefully there's a movie theater there. I don't know how they roll.
Does that mean you're going to be pregnant? Is that like a euphemism for pregnant?
What?
No,
Isn't that like what women say? Like, I'm going to be in sandals?
no, I'm going to like the beach.
Okay.
No, he means
The
he's going to be
resort.
wearing sandals
Yeah,
Oh.
when that movie comes out.
and hopefully they allow people with flip flops into theaters. I don't know.
Yeah, they're so tacky.
Anyways,
So my most anticipated films of 2020. Starting out, I have one that is not going to theaters, but hey, it's the age of streaming. Who cares, you know?
I don't.
Rules are meant to be broken.
That's right.
Walk on the wild side.
Times they are changing.
Yeah, they are. The Many Saints of Newark. So David Chase, the creator behind the wonderful TV show The Sopranos, the classic wonderful TV show The Sopranos, is coming out with a prequel movie called The Many Saints of Newark, about Tony Soprano's father, and I guess a young Tony Soprano is going to be in it, played by James Gandolfini's son.
Fitting.
Yeah. So this is a movie that I like Better Call Saul and like El Camino, I didn't really want to exist. When I heard about it, I was like, I don't know, you know. But, you know, the Deadwood movie turned out okay. El Camino turned out really good, I think, in my opinion. And Better Call Saul is excellent. So I guess I should just keep my skepticisms in place. And I'm hoping this movie will just be something that will make me want to revisit The Sopranos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Except for I
I've-
don't have that much time on my hands.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sopranos, so I will probably watch this, although I might have to resist the urge to watch like the whole series beforehand, just because that is a big time commitment. I'll probably just go straight to the movie.
It's a prequel, so you can watch it afterwards.
That's true. You can just see if it wants to inspire you to go back and watch the show.
Fair enough.
But anyways, okay, so that's The Many Saints of Newark. The next one I have on there is a sequel to a movie that came out last year, and it is called Halloween Kills.
Last year,
2018.
2018.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that's not last year anymore. That's what? The year before last.
Time is weird.
Yeah, it is. Keeps on moving. So anyways, Halloween Kills is the second of a planned trilogy by David Gordon Green. If you would have asked me before they announced two of them, I would have said, you know, wrap it up, keep it done. You know, they got rid of all the sequels, and that's kind of what made Halloween 2018 so good. So I'm really worried that these sequels don't end up becoming exactly what they tried to stop by like rebooting the franchise, you know?
Yeah.
That's there, but I think I feel a lot better about it because they announced two at the same time, and they're like, we're done. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like they have a plan. So, I don't know. Yeah, as long as they don't go on too long and make it ridiculous and make Michael Myers related to people like he used to be in all the other Halloween sequels from the 80s and stuff, then I can live with it. But I'm curious, but hesitant. And then lastly, this is probably the movie I'm most anticipating, and that is Dune, which is being directed by Denis Villeneuve, and it's starring everyone.
There we go.
Yeah. Denis Villeneuve described it as the adult Star Wars. And I have never read Dune, nor have I seen the David Lynch version. But yeah, I'm really excited to finally see it, and I have every bit of faith in Denis Villeneuve to deliver something at least moody and cool, at the very least.
Yeah.
I've seen several adult Star Wars films.
Are you talking about porn?
Whoa.
No.
Are we doing another guessing game? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, what's happening?
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Okay. Anyways, anything else we want to talk about on most anticipated of 2020 before we move into our review of 1917?
I'm with you on Dune. That's it. I just want to support you on that. That's, I mean, probably if I'm being real, like probably the one I'm most excited about, just because, you know, I like his work. But
yeah, he's probably my favorite. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
But for sake of, you know, doing this, we wanted to have a variety of films, so we're not going to all pick Dune.
Yeah, I did call dibs on Dune.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, he's probably my favorite director of the last decade. If I had to pick one, you know, like especially favorite new director. So I mean,
he's made some quality stuff. I haven't seen Enemy, so I'm like in Incendies. I'm behind on.
I haven't seen Incendies. I saw Enemy, and I think you'd like it.
I'm
it's
sure
definitely interesting. Is his most wacky and weird, but
yeah, I like Prisoners, even though it's super depressing, and I like Arrival. Obviously, I love Arrival, and then Blade Runner 2049. I really, really enjoyed that. They ended up making a worthy sequel to a movie that I really, really aggressively did not want a sequel for. So
Agreed.
I trust this guy can adapt anything.
There we go.
And don't forget Sicario. I like Sicario a lot too.
Oh yeah, the first Sicario. Yeah. Very moody. He's good at mood. Okay.
Well, cool. That's a lot of things to be excited about.
Indeed. We got a lot of 1917 to talk about.
That's true. So we should probably do that.
Quick, guys. Let's run to the other side of this bumper and meet me there to talk about 1917.
Okay.
All right.
You have a brother in the 2nd Battalion.
Yes, sir. Is he alive?
And with your help, I'd like to keep it that way. But they're walking into a trap. Your orders are to deliver a message calling off tomorrow morning's attack. If you don't, we will lose 1,600 men. Your brother among them.
There is only one way this war ends. Last man standing.
If you fail, it will be a massacre.
All right. So as always with our movies that we review that are currently in theaters or currently streaming, we will be doing a non-spoiler section up front. We'll be speaking generally. We won't give any major spoilers away. Probably not even any minor spoilers either. So if you haven't seen the film yet, you can listen through that point. When we get to spoilers, we'll give you a warning. We'll play a bumper so you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, go see 1917, come back, and finish listening.
Run to see 1917.
Run to see 1917.
I'm really taking advantage of that theme this episode.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, milking that joke.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
1917, directed by Sam Mendes, starring Dean Charles Chapman, George McKay, and Daniel Mays. The IMDb synopsis says 2 young British soldiers during the First World War are given an impossible mission: deliver a message deep in enemy territory that will stop 1,600 men and one of the soldiers' brothers from walking straight into a deadly trap.
For a film that's done without stopping, there's a lot of pausing and weird things that have to happen in that synopsis.
Yeah, the movie has better flow than this synopsis does. Am I right?
That's right. Less interruptions.
Yep. Okay, guys. So, do you mind if I get started on 1917?
No, go ahead. I would love it if you would get started, actually.
Okay. So 1917, this movie came out pretty late in the game. I felt like I was pretty much done with this movie season. I was ready to make my top 10 list after maybe catching like one or two more movies. Not because 1917 looked bad, but mainly just because this movie season has felt busy and I felt full, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really been keyed into the marketing. I remember the trailer, but I haven't really been paying attention that closely to it. And I think that ended up being for the best. Because I ended up enjoying this movie more than I thought I would. I think it's very well crafted. And it's just, well, I don't want to say fun, but it's very much a ride-like experience. It's all about the craft on display and the skill of the execution. The story is really quite simple. That synopsis pretty much summed up the whole thing. Think Dunkirk meets The Revenant.
Yeah, that's very accurate.
And I think that describes this movie. Except in my opinion, I think it takes the best of both of those movies to combine into this movie. So yeah, I think 1917 is often thrilling, emotionally engaging, suspenseful, all of the above. It's a very simple movie, but it does all of those things very effectively. So it's a good step up from Spectre, if you ask me, and from Sam Mendes. I think I usually enjoy most of what he does, but I was not a big fan of Spectre. So I'm glad he bounced back with a movie that might be my favorite movie of his besides American Beauty. It's not without faults. It's not a perfect movie, but I really quite liked it. So who wants to go next?
Chris?
Yeah, I can go ahead and go. I'm kind of with you that I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did. I went in and I don't know what put me off about it, before I went and saw it.
Let's talk about that for a second, just really briefly.
Okay.
I think it's Sam Mendes. I think it was Spectre for me. Like, if he had made this movie right after Skyfall, I think people would have been a lot more excited. But I think Spectre really hit with really flat for a lot of people, and at least that's my experience.
Yeah, I think for me what it wasn't the Sam Mendes aspect of it. It was the marketing of it being one take. I think if I had to put my thumb on it, that's what it was. Yeah. And it's not one take necessarily. It's a bunch of one takes together. And marketing it that way made me feel like they were trying to sell the spectacle of the one shot as opposed to sell the movie itself, right? And so I was like, one take doesn't make a movie type of thing, like that spectacle doesn't make a movie. But anyway,
I didn't really start hearing about that seriously until like a couple weeks before its release.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so that was kind of where I was coming from as I went into the movie. But it turned out to be really great. I really, really like this movie. It's beautiful. It's well acted. We have Deakins in here, and that's probably something we didn't mention in the Oscar part of it, but he is nominated for an Oscar for this, right?
Yes.
As well, I think he should be, because there's some amazing shots in here, like stunning shots. And
oh, absolutely, yeah.
It works. It works really well. There's surprises and twists and turns that I wasn't exactly expecting. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this film. And like Mike, I kind of upset my top 10 list that I had going so far. So yeah, we'll have to look forward to, I think that's in 2 weeks, our top 10 of the 2020. But yeah, so Justin, what was your experience with the film?
Well, you guys have touched on a lot of my feelings about it. I did really enjoy it. I was skeptical, like Chris, going in because of the one-shot thing. That happened with Birdman, too. It was all that was being talked about around it was like, the film is like one seamless shot or whatever, seemingly seamless shot. And I don't know, for me in Birdman, I found that distracting. Even though I really like Birdman, I don't know, it's just kind of a distracting element of the film that didn't necessarily need it.
It draws a lot of attention to itself when people are just standing around talking.
Yeah. Where it worked for me in this film was that there's a lot of action. They're going across, vast, like land. I don't know exactly how far they're going, but it's like a several hours journey that they're supposed to be going on. And we're not condensing any time. Whereas Birdman, I think, does take place over like longer than the span of the movie, which I don't know. It feels a little bit better, a little bit more congruent with like the story and the setting and the themes in this film than it did in Birdman. So I found it much less distracting, although I will say that it is distracting a little bit.
I think this film does condense time a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah.
It's not necessarily in real time.
There's a couple of moments like that, but for the most part, like I think like the first half of it felt very real time.
Okay, yeah.
We can get into maybe whether it is or isn't with some details later.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that comes from having been in film school. I shoot video. I've, made short films and movies. And as you have, Mike and Chris, you've been on our sets and stuff too. So I don't know if you guys have this problem to an extent, but like it is something that I can't ignore. And it does keep me a little bit detached from the emotion of the story. And so those elements of the film, the emotional impact of it, didn't really land for me. Not to say that it's bad. It's just like it didn't hit to like take the film up to that extra level to where like I love this film. I do really like it though. So
sure.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Well, what I would say, I don't find it super distracting, to be honest. Sometimes I do find it distracting, but I don't find that type of distraction to be bad. I actually quite like it sometimes, unless it's like there's times where it's like I think it draws too much attention to itself and it doesn't look as good as it thinks it does. There's a fight scene in Kingsman that gets quoted a lot as like a really cool, long, fantastic one shot, and I think that one looks a little too fake.
Yeah, definitely. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. This to me felt like using it to the best degree. I'm thinking of like the Children of Men aspect, where I think it can really enhance the storytelling. In fact, there are sequences in 1917 that I found to be more thrilling than probably anything since Fury Road. So I guess I just don't follow you on down this path on this movie. I find it to be, when it is distracting, I find it to be impressive. Just like a really standout performance can be. Like when I'm watching Marlon Brando in A Streetcar Named Desire, I'm distracted by Marlon Brando being so good at acting, but it's still a tool that the movie is using in its favor, if that makes sense. Like, it's distracting, but I don't necessarily view it as like distracting in a bad way, I guess. It's part of the fun.
Yeah, I'm not thinking that it's necessarily a fault of the films as much as it is just like me. It's just that I'm not going to say that it's like a bad thing about the movie, because you're right that it is impressive, and when I'm paying attention to it, I'm very impressed. Particularly with this film, like the things
that's
that
part of the fun, right? Like that's what this movie's trying to do. It's not trying to wow you. It's not trying to make you cry.
No, I don't think so. But I guess I lose some investment, is
Fair
what
enough.
I'm saying, where I'm just not, completely enraptured in what's going on story-wise or character-wise.
Sure. And I feel that in a lot of movies that do this. Yeah, and I'm not unsympathetic to that, because I felt that in Gravity. I love Alfonso Cuarón. I love Children of Men. I think Children of Men's the gold standard for this kind of follow really closely behind, make it feel like one long shot when it's really not,
Mm-hmm.
But I found it distracting in Gravity. I don't think it lends itself to every kind of movie, but I think in a movie like this where there's a lot of running around and the camera's weaving in and out, if the blocking is right and the combination of the movements and the camera movements are right and the energy is there, I think it can really enhance the story. And I think in this particular case, I think where I differ from you is I feel like it did, but I am totally sympathetic to feeling that, because I do feel that same thing pretty frequently when this is used.
Yeah. I think that this film does some interesting thing. I think that kind of ties into Children of Men as well, and especially the scenes where they're walking through the barracks or the ditches where there's
No
just
man's
this,
land.
no man's land. No, not no man's land. The trenches. Yeah, that's the right word. But there's just like this massive humanity, and you can kind of just look anywhere on the screen and see stories that are happening. They kind of did the same thing in Children of Men. You could just look anywhere on the screen and something's going on. Like there's a whole nother story happening over on the side. And I really felt that, especially in the trenches here, that there's just all this stuff going on everywhere. And these people exist outside of the film, right? It doesn't feel like once the camera leaves them, they just like walk off and go light a cigarette and eat food and drink Starbucks, right? It feels like they exist in this world. And I think that's one thing that the one take does bring to it, because you can kind of just watch as all that stuff happens.
Yeah. I think it's the right choice for the story, and I think it's the right choice for this movie. And I think it's done really well. So I don't want it to be misinterpreted that I think it's bad or like the wrong choice. There's just a slight trade-off for me, but outside of that, I mean, everything you guys said is right on. I mean, it's entertaining. There's some of like what I would consider some of the best sequences of the year happen in this movie.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in depth once we get to spoilers. And I think it takes an exceptional war action movie for me to like get really into it. Like with a lot of war movies, I find myself a little, it's doing a lot of uphill work to like get into a territory where I really like it. Right. It's just not like a movie that speaks to me on a level where like I'm just into war movies. And so to this movie's credit, I really like it. And it successfully climbed up a hill, to get me really on board with it.
Yeah. I'm honestly surprised that we all ended up liking it as much as we did, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not going to say I wasn't excited about it, but like I said earlier, I just wasn't thinking about it one way or the other, Like,
there's so much other stuff coming out at the time, too.
Even on the way to the movie theater, I was still thinking about the movies I'd already seen. Because I'm just still so satisfied with, like, Marriage Story and all this other stuff, that it's been a good couple months, let's just put it that way. So this is just a great way to close out, the 2019 movies before we really start moving into 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's rad that it's a film that I think you could take, most people to see, because it's a war movie. I mean, there's some, violent gore and some blood in there. None of which to me is super over the top, and it's relatively brief.
It felt pretty grounded. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel like it's a movie that not necessarily the whole family in terms of kids, but like you could take your dad to see, or, and I think even, it's not like a manly war movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not overly macho. It's not like We Were Soldiers or or like Wind Talkers or anything like that, or Platoon,
Right.
What I will say is that, like, if you know anyone who likes war movies, but like they weren't a big fan of Dunkirk, try this movie out, because I think it's just as thrilling as Dunkirk in a lot of places, but none of that jumping around in time. It's very straightforward. Like Justin said, even large sections of the movie feel like they're happening in real time, because I guess they kind of are.
I feel like most everything is happening in real time.
Yeah.
I can think of two exceptions where we jump time.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should go ahead and hop into spoilers, because I have a question about the time and everything like that. And we might as well just move into spoilers, because why not?
You mean run into spoilers, right?
Oh, good one. Missed opportunity. Chris, you picked it up.
All right. Well, let's go.
Okay. I'll recommend. Here we go. Bye.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
So, guys, I was wondering, did the movie ever actually say how far they were supposed to go? Because I feel like the geography was pretty hard to pay attention to in a lot of places. Because of the one-shot thing, we were able to track their journey, like when they're going, from the trenches through no man's land and all that stuff. But, like, it felt goofy because, like, they're in the car for, I think, a total of, like, 5 minutes, like those trucks,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't going that fast. So I feel like they didn't ride very long in those trucks at all before they were like, well, thanks, I got to get out here and go, you know? Or I guess it was just one at the time. But
yeah, well, they hit that bridge and had to turn or whatever.
yeah, it just felt weird. I was just kind of conscious of that as it was going on, because I was like, they haven't been in the truck that long. I know, because we haven't cut.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see the scenery around them, you know, transition well enough that I felt like it was plausible that that's where they went.
Well, I mean, I do too, but I think that's because like the movie plays fast and loose with exactly how far they're supposed to go.
Interesting. I didn't feel that at all. I thought it was. I thought
you felt like it tracked pretty well. Like you felt like they didn't go too fast, too far, or too slow or anything. You felt like the journey tracked pretty well, and you never felt like it's taking too long to get one place, or that all felt good to you, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only thing that makes me question that is I thought at one point early on in the movie they talk about it being like an 8-hour like trek or something.
They needed to make it by the next morning. So yeah, it was like less than a day's journey by foot.
Well, the thing is, like, I don't think it's that far. I think it's only like a few miles. I just think it's like it's such a dangerous journey is like the issue.
Maybe it's that they had 8 hours, 8 or 9
Right,
hours to get there by morning or whatever.
Like I think you have like 3 miles to go, but it's a really, really dangerous, eventful 3 miles. You know.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like to me.
Right. Well, what did you think, Chris?
I mean, to me, it felt like a good journey. You know, more than 3 miles, like it was going to take all night type of thing, and they needed to keep moving the whole time. And that's there's that urgency that the Baratheon kid.
The guy, like at one point he passes out in the daytime and wakes up at nighttime.
Right, basically in the morning.
So, like, I feel like if he hadn't passed out for hours, presumably, he could have made it a lot sooner.
Yeah. At that point.
So, like, it wasn't that far of a journey. I just think he ran into so much crap along the way that it took the entire time.
Yeah, to me it felt like, I mean, this is just like my experience with the film, but it felt like, look, you guys need to go now, and you need, you know, like part of that's the danger, you know, but like you're gonna have to hurry up in order to make this journey. So that was how I felt.
No, I agree with you. I just think the implication is that the reason they need to hurry is because it's a dangerous journey, not necessarily because they're going 20 miles. They're going They're going a very short distance, and they need to be careful the entire way. That's the impression I got, that we're hunkering down way too long on that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say one of the things that does work about the movie is no matter what's happening, there is this sense that at any moment, like a bullet might hit near them or an explosion might happen. So even the seemingly like simple non-action scenes where they're walking and talking just have this constant sense of like dread about them, where you're just like waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, the planes in the first half, as the planes just like hover around them, and I always assumed that they were German planes, but like I don't know if they both were at that time, but eventually there's a German plane. But
well, they say the planes are theirs. The first 2 planes that we see.
Oh, as they
yeah, they're like, are those ours? And they're like, yeah. So yeah.
Well, then I guess they weren't. I missed that, but
well, that's the point. That's the point that I'm making, is that everything feels dangerous.
Yeah,
even planes that they say are theirs, like you're so suspicious of, like anything could happen. They could walk into anything. They could turn a corner and like see some German soldiers or hit a tripwire or get shot at out of nowhere, which, you know, does happen in the movie, but like you're just that on edge. So I get it.
Yeah. Or get stabbed by the guy that you just saved.
Or that.
Yeah. Which made me mad.
That they saved him or that he got stabbed?
That he got stabbed. I was like, no, son of a bitch. I was like, what a dick move to do. He just saved you from being on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
After you tried to crash your plane into him.
Were you surprised by that moment? I thought that the two of them were going to make it through, you know, like go at least to the end of the film. I was shocked.
I was surprised it happened that early, yeah.
Yeah.
I expected one of them to die.
Yeah, I knew one of them was going to die. But I didn't, I was shocked that it happened that early.
And it's the guy that we start the movie with that seems like the main character, because it's his brother
they're
really going
like
after.
That.
You know?
Yeah.
And I like how like the guy that ends up being our main character is the guy that like didn't want to go to begin with. He wasn't even like the heroic one who was like, gung ho about the mission.
Yeah, he didn't have like the drive of, seeing his brother.
Exactly. He didn't really want to be the hero. He just wanted to like be not in a dangerous situation, and he ends up having to put himself in like the most dangerous situation.
Yeah, several of them at that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but where this movie really, really grabbed me, and that is while we were talking about the time jumps, after he has that little showdown with the German officer, and we have that little bit of a time lapse as the screen goes to black. That's when the cinematography and everything is just on display, and it's just amazing to me. Like the flares are going off. There's a giant fire happening.
I was about to say, yeah, that whole section's my favorite sequence of the movie. Like I remember, yeah, when the flares were going up, like you see like the fire burning, like with a church on like the right, and then you see like the flares, and it's like all the ruins of the walls and stuff, and the shadows are just dancing off of one another.
And then there's this amazing moment where the German soldier like emerges in the bottom right corner.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't even see him at first. And like, at least for me, it was like, is that somebody? Is that a person? And then he slowly comes closer and closer. And it was just such a great sequence.
Yeah. It's like, is it an ally or is it a German?
Yeah. Who is it? Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't even know. And it's like, not only until he got close and realized that he started like charging him. Like that charge was so scary. Mm-hmm. Like it's so much scarier than just like a shootout.
Yeah, this is definitely the section I was referring to earlier when I was like, this has one of the best sequences of the year, like in any film. Mm-hmm. And I think it's this. It looks wonderful. It's intense. Like it has the sort of middle section where he goes underground with the French woman, and her baby, which is really good.
Strong Children of Men vibes there.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
even some of the framing. But yeah, I think that sequence, like with the flares in the sky and like the huge, massive fire burning and the silhouettes, and it's just all following him around. Like I think that's the scene where I actually like became conscious of what I was doing watching the movie, and like my mouth was hanging open and I was leaning forward, just like admiring the beauty on screen.
Right.
That's when I knew. I was like, God, this movie is just like it's transcending. Like this is where it's getting me, right? Like, I kind of mentioned earlier, I was like, the movie's not trying to make you cry, but there were a couple moments where like I did get choked up because I think the movie is told so well, and it's not super hard to make me cry in a movie.
I think there's a moment where when the German soldier shows up and I first see him, and like I kind of like chuckled, like I was like because I was surprised, and I was like, good job, movie, like you did it, and I don't know, like it. But there's definitely like a reaction there, to that moment.
Yeah, and after he leaves with the French woman, he has that little fight with the one guy who ends up choking. And after that, when he's like running through there, if I remember correctly, that's the point where he loses his gun, or he no longer has his gun. And so he's just having to run from people shooting at him.
Yeah, which is so scary.
Yeah, it's so intense. And it was just like ratcheted that whole scene up to like a new level, right? And
well, and the beauty is you have no idea where anyone is. You just hear shots in the background every time, like the flares go overhead and he's in the light. You just hear a shot.
Yeah,
and you don't know how close they are. You just hear them whizzing by, and like that's so cool. And like because he doesn't know where they are. He's just booking it. You know what I mean? He's just booking it, getting to the next shadow. And man, it's just that whole sequence is just something else.
Yeah, I think if there's any place that I lost my like focus on what the camera was doing and the one shot thing, it's probably this, because that's where it worked really well.
Yeah,
it worked. Not to say that it doesn't work well the rest of the movie, but it worked the best. Like in this sequence,
the stuff on screen.
Here's what it's all about. Here's the effect they hope to achieve. Like in like on
it's
full
the
display
apex of what they can achieve. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious how you guys felt and what that did for you, like later in the movie when, right before he leaves the trucks with Mark Strong, with his character, and Mark Strong delivers that last line of like, what is it? Make sure there's witnesses when you deliver this, because some people are in it just for the fight.
Oh yeah, you're like, oh my God, is this an Apocalypse Now situation?
Yeah, that for sure made me. I was like, he's gonna get all the way to the end, and it's going to be all worthless. And it's going to be like one of those downer war movies where like
Gallipoli or something.
Yeah. And there is actually, and Justin kind of pointed this out to me the other day, but there's a moment where Benedict Cumberbatch is like, no, it's too late. We're going to go anyways. And you're like, fuck, and you think that Mark Strong was right, and but then he turns it. So it gives that suspense, I think, like if without that Mark Strong line, I think Justin said this, but like, without that Mark Strong line, when Benedict Cumberbatch delivers his line, there'd be a lot less suspense to that moment.
Oh, so. Yeah, I really dug that. Like, they put that expectation, or at least, not even the expectation. They just it's like the Chekhov's gun. They hang it on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we expect it to be cashed in. And it is. It's not, like, they don't not pick it up, you know what I mean? But it's just like, it doesn't go the way we thought it would, right? Like, at that point, we couldn't handle more.
No. It doesn't go the way we worry that it will after that line, right? And that's what that line is doing. Is like you're rooting for him to get there and make it, but in the back of your mind, I think the whole movie after that line, it's like, man, if he even makes it, is it going to be successful? Like, right. So the suspense doesn't drop once he makes it because of that.
But yeah, and the way Cumberbatch plays it, like I honestly got the impression that if no one else had been there in the room, he may have just done it anyway. Like, Mark Strong may be right. You know what I mean? Like, luckily, whenever he does deliver it, we don't have to worry about that because there's like 3 people standing around him. So I just think that's like they put that question in your brains and they never really fully answer it. Like, what kind of man is Benedict Cumberbatch? You know what I mean? Like, would he have done it anyway? So I like that question's still out there,
Yeah. And
I also really like that run to Benedict Cumberbatch where he like just decides to run.
Yeah, the trailer run. It still got me. Like right before he ran, I was like, oh, it's the trailer shot. I wish I didn't know this was coming in the trailer.
Yeah.
I know.
But it was still amazing.
But it still got me.
Like, it still got me, yeah. And the music, maybe it was different music in the trailer, but the music really, like, nailed it there for me, too. He's just running, and then he's running into all his soldiers. That moment's really great, too.
Oh, yeah, I laughed at the first soldier he ran into.
Yeah.
Because, like, it doesn't look like he gets up. It just looks like he just stays there for a while.
He stays on the ground. And I was like, I was kind of distracted by that. I kept looking at him. I was like, what? Did that guy break his leg? And, like... Or did he get just like knocked unconscious or something?
He's just running so hard. He knocked himself out.
Yeah. I know that picked up on that too. That was kind of funny, and weird.
If somebody hit me from the side, like one of my own men hit me, I would just stay down too.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, that guy probably just took this as like, well, this is my thing. I told myself I would play dead the first chance.
Yeah, God,
the first chance I fell down, so I'm not going to get another one.
We need to see the movie like 1920 that's all about that one guy dealing with repercussions of that.
Still there.
I will say.
Still there, waiting.
One of the things I noticed, I've been praising this movie pretty hard. I do have a complaint about this scene. I think this is where the special effects actually show their limitations. I noticed that some of the explosions in the background, not the immediate ones, because I think those are practical, but some of the explosions off in like the further distance, they don't look the best. Some of the smoke looks kind of wonky.
Yeah, I saw that too. I tried to ignore it, but
yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. But like in a movie that I've otherwise been praising pretty hard, I felt like fair is fair. I gotta point those out when I see them too.
Yeah, there's a couple things where the effects and there's that, and there's like the time where he jumps off the bridge into the water. The like visual effects to like either transition the shot or like in your case like the actual like visual effects explosions they don't look quite real to me. They don't seem quite natural, and it kind of took me out. But it's pretty close to being great.
Yeah, I agree. Also, a useless CGI cow that was unnecessary. Could have just gotten a real cow, or no cow at all.
Like all the cows.
Minor complaint.
Or.
Just that one that, like, whenever he fills up his canteen full of milk, He looks out the window at one cow, and, like, the one cow, like... It's like when animals move too much. Like, when CGI animals move too much. I think that's the dead giveaway. Like, if you're going to have a CGI animal, don't make it do anything.
And I think... Yeah, and I you're probably right. But I think with these long takes, though, like, you can't have somebody, like... wrangling the cow.
Oh, I get it. Like, just like I forgave it in The Revenant. Like, you're not going to get a bunch of buffalo to be in The Revenant. I understand that.
Or a bear.
or a bear,
just-
right? Yeah, but there are certain things you just can't help but notice.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We haven't hit that perfection of that yet, and we have to live with what we have, I think, until then.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, before CGI, it was stop motion animation, so it's certainly better than that.
Yeah, this is totally unrelated, but I remember the last time I watched the first Terminator and that like stop motion.
Oh man, I watched that a couple months ago.
It's so damn bad. Like I like that movie, but man, it just like tanks right there.
Yeah. It's like the movie's operating at like a 9 as far as like production value. Like James Cameron's always ahead of his time, like a movie in the 80s, like it's like firing on all cylinders, and then that fucking chase in the factory at the end where it's like, ugh, good lord.
Yeah. Anyways.
Still a good movie though.
Yeah. I did want to ask you guys, did you take away any sort of themes or anything like that from this movie, or was it just kind of like a entertaining war movie?
Nothing that the average war movie can't give you, but I think maybe delivered in a more effective way. Themes of brotherhood, shared experience, obligation to one another. Once you witness a man die and bleed to death, I wanted him to find his brother. You know what I mean? Like that's like a tale as old as time in war movies, But it worked for me. Like at the end, whenever we see Richard Madden and, he talks to his brother, and when Richard Madden cried, I cried. I was there for it. It got me. So, yeah, there you go.
Real quick, I did want to say, so when I first started watching this movie, the main character of the movie, at the time we don't know that he's the main character, but he pierces his hand, like in the center with that barbed wire. Mm. And I immediately thought that, I was like, oh, this guy's going to die because he's the Jesus figure, right? And then I thought that, okay, once he didn't die, he wasn't. But I am now recanting that because he does take on the burden of, the brother. And so he, much like Jesus taking on the sins of the world or whatever, the burden of the world, like he does take on that burden and follow it through. So
yeah, I mean, like he has an arc there. Like the main character, the guy who ends up being our main character, he's not heroic. He wants to keep his head down. He berates Dean Charles Chapman for recommending he go along with him. He's like, "Why'd you pick me?" You know what I mean? And we find out later it's because he wants to keep his head down and get back to his wife and kid. But at the time we think is he just cowardly? Is he just whatever? He just doesn't want to be part of this whole thing.
Just a soldier, in
right?
War.
and through his bonding and through the obligation of this brotherhood that they have, he does take the weight of the world upon his shoulders. Like he doesn't have to try. Like he could have given up at any point after that, and no one would have known.
Yeah, there's a couple of moments where I was like, he could quit the war right now. Like
he could fucking
nobody
run
would
away.
know that he was still alive. Yeah, he
like, sorry,
doesn't have to
it.
do anything. Yeah.
I do want to compliment like that end scene with the brother. And this is something I think about ever since I took a history of cinema class in college, and we were watching Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, and the professor was talking about the end of that film and which characters Chaplin chooses to like show us their reactions and when, and like why we're seeing their reactions. And I think it's really interesting to watch this movie thinking about that, like, and paying attention to, who we're looking at for what. And like, because we only have the one camera angle, right? Like we can't cut and see both people in a conversation at once,
right? Like
we can in a traditional movie. So it's really interesting to watch, like, and see the director, Sam Mendes, obviously, like choosing which characters we're going to hold on. And particularly, like, I love that we were holding on the brother, even though like we've been with the main character for this journey to find the brother, and like there could be some satisfaction in seeing him like finally, unburden himself and deliver that message to the brother. But I like that because of the way they chose to shoot this movie, we just get that shot and we just see the main character from like the back delivering the lines and like watching the brother's reaction. And I always find those moments like really powerful. Like when directors like make an interesting choice that like feels like the right choice in hindsight, but you don't necessarily think about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, like I guess it's his job to really, when conceptualizing the scene, like where's my heart right now in the script? You know what I mean? Like where does my heart want to focus?
Yeah.
And I think choosing the brother is the right move there because it's a way to honor the character that died a long time ago, right? And still keep him present in the story. And I agree with you. I think it was the right call.
It also puts us squarely in our protagonist's shoes, right? He's delivering the message, and we feel like we are, and we're seeing the reaction as well, and feeling the same thing that our main character is, I think.
Yeah, and we've already seen his reaction to the other guy's death, right? We saw his reaction to it, dead on, and so we don't need to see it again. Like now, we need to see the brother's reaction, right? So it works. I have one other thing to say. So we don't know much about the main character, right? And then he goes and sits by the tree and he pulls out the photos, I guess. And do you think, do you think that will make a different experience going through the film on a second viewing now that you know something about him? I don't know. Do you think it works that to not know anything about him and have this kind of reveal of the picture of, as you said, it's his wife and kid?
That's interesting too. A lesser film, I think, would, let you know the stakes.
Yeah.
Or they got to let you know the stakes in order so that you're invested, right?
Yeah. Well,
and
I
we're
was
still
about to
invested
say,
in him.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think if they'd have told me he had a wife and kid, I would have been less invested because I would have been sure he'd live.
Yeah.
Or make a noble sacrifice of some kind.
Right. It's like in the, I think it's like Transformers 1 or 2 or some crap like that. Like the Josh Duhamel character, at one point he's Skyping on the internet with his wife and kid. Like the first scene you see him.
Yeah.
And all that scene does is just to let you, that's I think that's the last time they're referenced. And that's just to let you know that he's a good dude and he won't die.
Yeah. Well, it's the war movie thing. It's
yeah.
The soldier's somebody that has a kid back home or whatever. And
yeah. So I think it's actually better because in my experience and kind of the way I've described it in the episode is it made me unpack the movie more afterwards, right? It made me unpack the characters' conversations with one another. And the guy who was our main character, it made me rethink why he was the way he was for the first 30 minutes of the movie.
And that's an interesting thing, too. The trope is, so the character opens up, like Saving Private Ryan. Each character kind of gets a monologue about his home and his home life and stuff like that. And then in the next battle, that character dies, right? So that's a trope. And that is interesting.
If they'd had a heart-to-heart, he'd have died right after. If there had been a scene where he was looking at the picture at the beginning of the movie, we would have known he couldn't die.
Right.
That's usually the way it works.
Right. Or that's set up to be the tearjerker moment when he does die.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically you can just kind of feel the emotional manipulation either way. So I think by not doing that, I think they kind of have their cake and eat it too, because you have that with the character who dies at the beginning, but the character who we're with for the rest of the movie, he's kept in mystery, so he feels like he could die at any moment. We're not really attached to the guy. But at a certain point, you go through so much hell with him, and at the end, you find out even more. I think it kind of in my experience, it felt like it bonded me with him even more.
Agreed. Makes sense.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't have anything else on 1917.
I've been running too much, so
yeah, we ran this whole episode while recording.
One take, guys. One take.
All right. Well,
no edits.
Yeah, no edits
at all. If they are, hopefully they're seamless.
Yeah, listeners, what do you think of 1917?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Please. Well, that does it for this episode then, huh?
Yep.
I believe so.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening. And then, of course, as always, thanks Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
All right. Stay tuned to this channel. Next week, we'll be putting out an episode. What are we doing next week?
Casual Criterion.
Oh, duh. Yeah,
Very
probably
likely.
In the Mood for Love. Unless all the Brief Encounter fans come out in the next 24 hours in full force.
In the next 24 hours from time of recording, not time of release.
Come on, lean team.
The lean team.
There you go. And again, if you want to vote in that poll, which you can't right now because it's closed, but if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. And if you want to send us questions about the movies we're reviewing each week, you can send those there or to casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Cheerio.
Cheerio. I was trying to think of a Britishism.